We're on a job today for a lady who's not got long left before she gives birth, and this room's going to be the nursery. So we're on a tight schedule. There used to be an airing cupboard here with a water tank in it, and the pipes went up into the attic. The plumber's been in and took it all out and left this big gaping hole in the ceiling. There's nothing to fix to at the edge of the wall here. It's always going to be flapping up and down, and the nearest joist is here, right? Now, if I cut a section back to there and put a plasterboard in, it's still going to be flapping up and down. So to get leverage, really, you want to go back to the joist again before that. And that way then, because it's fixed to two joists, it's not going to kick up as much there. But it means, just for this section here, taking all this out and disturbing the whole lot with all the fiberglass and stuff above it. I'm going to show you an easier way of just fixing this hole in and then curving this in and getting all this ready to be re-skimmed, because ultimately we're going to prepare all this area and then we're going to re-skim the ceiling. Just turn around so the ceiling is. This is just an old bit of scrap board. We keep stuff like this in the back of the van just particularly for when we need little pieces of plasterboard for patches and stuff. I'm just making this slightly shorter than the hole so it actually fits in, but then slightly wider so it overlaps on both sides. So it'll fit in there like that, and it's going to go up and fold over, and it's going to sit down on both sides like that, and that's how it's going to stay in place.
Once the board's the right size, make two little holes in the centre about 2 inches apart. Now, I'm going to use a bit of scrim for this part, but you can use anything really. A bit of string, a shoelace, a bit of cable, anything that you can feed through those holes and loop through. For this whole job, I'm going to use drywall adhesive, and for specific reasons, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute.
Basically, you want this like Mr. Whippy ice cream. This is a little bit wet, but it's going to help the board stick above it, so we'll use it like this now, and then when we come to curve in with it a little bit, we'll thicken it up a little touch.
I'm putting adhesive right around the perimeter of the hole. I'm just using the bucket trowel, but you could use a plasterer's small tool, a scraper, a boot trowel, a margin tool, anything really. It'll be quite difficult to do with a plastering trowel though. Now before you do this bit, just get in there first with a little brush and brush all the dust away and damp it down a little bit.
What I'm trying to do is make sure that the blobs that I'm putting on are stood proud up, so that when the board pulls down and stuff, it's going to make a good adhesion to them, you know, it's going to squash into that adhesive. Okay, here we go.
Just go gentle with this bit so you don't knock all the adhesive off that you've put in. Once it's in place, you want to pull down firmly on the string or adhesive or whatever you've used. You want to see the adhesive squeezing out, and then you know that the board's well adhered to it.
Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm just going around the edge of the board, pointing everything up and making sure that adhesive is well squeezed in into any little gaps where the board is joining onto the ceiling. Like so. Now you've got a few options. We could leave that to set, cut off this bit of scrim and then fill it all in. But we haven't got long, so I want to get all this done now. So I'm going to leave these in place for now. I'm going to start filling this up now. I want to try and bring it along as far as I can, up until the point where we can't do any more, and then we'll leave it. We're going to thicken this up a little bit more now. A little bit of powder to make this a bit thicker. That's a lot thicker now. Hold it onto the scrim.
It's important that you hold onto the scrim or the string at this point, because if you don't, when you're trying to fill out with adhesive, you'll lift the board up and it'll push around and move. You don't want to be pulling down hard and breaking the plasterboard, but you just want to keep hold of it firmly.
Left-handed for you as well. There we go. Now, all we need to do now is let that set and cut these off. Or we could, if you wanted to, because it's going to be curved, we could literally just push these in and just leave them in like this. It won't make any difference because they're going to be inside the curve. Okay, so now whilst we're letting that start to set, we can fill up the wall as best as we can as well. And all we're going to do then is work with the curve.
The good thing about drywall adhesive is, once it's been in place for about 20 minutes, it starts to really firm up. So although it's not set, you can do the next application. Although there are settlement cracks in the cove right around the room, it all seems good and solid, and the ceiling is plasterboarded. So before we plaster this ceiling, I'll re-screw it all and scrim up all the cracks.
Now, we can't curve this straight away because that's still wet, and if we start trying to curve it, it'll push that board up. But what we can do is all the other bits, we can get all this ready, so we're going to do as much as we can with what we've got. Notice you can put the stuff in different positions on your trowel. It doesn't always have to be dead bang in the middle.
By the time we fix up all the little bits of damage, it should be firm enough on the big area for that to be fixed up as well. A lot of people think that a job like this needs to be done in lots of separate stages and drawn out over a couple of days, but I'm showing you literally it is possible to do all in one application. I'm going to fill over the electrical cable now. Now you usually get people getting all excited in the comments about this, that there should be capping on. Capping isn't a regulation. It's something the electricians might put on if they feel like it, and ultimately the reason it's for is to stop a plasterer digging into the cable with his trowel. Well, I'm quite careful, so I'm not worried about that. The plaster doesn't eat into the cable as much as some people think it does. The idea of the grey sheathing on the outside is to protect the cable, so you wouldn't put a sheathing on that could be deteriorated by plaster, would you? The customer's got some new picture rail made up, and what they've asked me to do is get the wall nice and smooth, and they're going to attach it to the surface. It possibly might have been easier for them to have stuck it on now and me plastered it in, but time is of the essence, so they're quite happy to do it afterwards. And that now, although it's not set, has gone very firm.
It's very nicely. So I've just got some little pieces of scrim ready, because this is firmed up a little tiny bit now. It's not quite as droopy, it's going to stay quite still, so we can get on with putting the curve in. Now before we do that, we're going to put a lot of scrim, we're going to bed scrim into this. And the scrim's going to do a couple of things. It's going to help stop any cracks reappearing, but it's also going to tie this in so it doesn't move around too much when we're putting the next sort of coat of adhesive on. Okay, you might be thinking, why is he using drywall adhesive to do this? Why not use some like bonding coat like that over there? Why not use that instead? Would that be better? Here's the thing, bonding coat is for low suction backgrounds. We have bare brick, which is a high suction background, so we would have had to seal everything first, whereas the drywall adhesive will stick directly to it. Now there are other back coats. We could have used hardwall, which is for high suction backgrounds. But we've also got plasterboard, which is a low suction background, and that doesn't like sticking to plasterboard. So it's just easier to use a product that sticks to both. Drywall adhesive sticks to bricks and plasterboard at the same time. No sealing necessary, so it just gives you peace of mind it's going to work. Now, this house has got a cavity in the wall. If it didn't have a cavity in the wall, we couldn't fit out back to the brick with any gypsum-based products. We would have either got to use lime-based products so it could breathe, but this has got a sand and cement background, so we would have used sand and cement with a waterproofer in it. Fortunately, because there's a cavity present, we don't need to. We can use, listen to me, because there's a cavity present, I like all technical, we can just get away with using gypsum-based products like adhesive, bonding coat, finishing plaster. It's all fine. We can get on with that stuff. So I'm going to put the scrims in here now. I'm just going to gently bed them in with my fingers so they don't move around, because the adhesive is still a bit wet from the first lot. There we go. I'm just going to work along doing this. Okay, all the scrims in place now. Yeah, come in and have a look. All the scrims in place. We've gone a little bit past where the hole was, and then when we put the next coat on to start curving in, it's going to keep everything still and stop anything moving around. And to bed them in, just go over them with a little brush like this, and it just makes sure that it brings the adhesive through the scrim, you see, and it just makes sure that they're not going to move around when the next coat goes on.
Just touching back on something mentioned earlier, the main reason that you have a cavity is to separate the outside skin of brick from the inside skin of brick. And the reason you do that is to stop moisture passing through from the outside when it rains on the wall. It stops a thing called penetrating damp. Older buildings didn't have this, and they had lime plaster which breathed, so if it got a bit damp it would release the moisture. Gypsum plaster doesn't, it holds onto the moisture. Although it looks quite straightforward doing this, it's usually done in separate stages, and the reason being is you want each part to set, and that is because you don't want it to sag and drop off. If you put too much wet plaster in one place, it can droop and fall, so that's why you'd usually do it all in separate stages. But I'm showing you, if you mix the stuff at the right consistency, it is possible to get it all done in one go. The aim isn't to try and get this super smooth, it's just to get the shape right so it's ready to be skimmed. No big lines or holes in it.
That's it now. That's all ready to be skimmed, so we can let that set. We're going to come back tomorrow and we'll seal all the sealing. We'll seal this at the same time. We'll be able to skim over everything. So that's how you fill a hole and curve it all back in within an hour and a half, basically.
On the trowel all day, watch on the trowel all night. Every day,